President Trump flips the script, now telling Republicans vote to release the Epstein files. What's behind the move? Plus, the U.S. military buildup near Venezuela grows. And now we're hearing something new. Maduro may want to talk. And just in time for holiday travel, the FAA clears the skies. Flights are back to full speed at 40 major airports. The stories that matter, clear and credible, from across the country to around the world. These are your unbiased updates from Straight Arrow News. Good morning, I'm Craig Negrelli. A late-night reversal from President Trump has upended one of the most volatile fights on Capitol Hill, the push to force the release of all remaining Jeffrey Epstein files. After days of pressuring Republicans not to move forward, the president is now urging them to vote yes. On Truth Social, Trump said House Republicans should vote to release the files because, quote, we have nothing to hide. He also called the Epstein fight a, quote, Democrat hoax and said it's time for the GOP to move on. The turnabout comes after a week of mounting pressure and a very public feud with one of his most loyal allies, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, referring to her as a, quote, traitor and disgrace to our great Republican Party on Saturday. Then again last night as a traitor that no one cares about. Words that clearly stung. The most hurtful thing he said, which is absolutely untrue, is he called me a traitor. And that is so extremely wrong. And those are the types of words used that can radicalize people against me and put my life in danger. Greene told CNN she's now done with toxic rhetoric. I would like to say humbly, I'm sorry for taking part in the toxic politics. It's very bad for our country. And it's been something I've thought about a lot, especially since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, is that I'm only responsible for myself and my own words and actions. And I am committed, and I've been working on this a lot lately, to put down the knives in politics. I really just want to see people be kind to one another. The falling out follows days of vitriol from Trump and a growing block of conservatives, Greene among them, pushing to release the files despite his earlier opposition. But the momentum was already shifting. A bipartisan discharge petition hit 218 signatures, forcing a vote this week, something the White House had tried to avoid. On ABC, Republican Thomas Massie, co-author of the bill, said GOP support is surging.
I think we could have a deluge of Republicans. There could be 100 or more. I'm hoping to get a veto-proof majority on this legislation when it comes up for a vote. And, you know, the president's been saying this is a hoax. He's been saying that for months. But in 2030, he's not going to be the president, and you will have voted to protect pedophiles if you don't vote to release these files, and the president can't protect you then. This vote, the record of this vote, will last longer than Donald Trump's presidency.
But Speaker Mike Johnson, one of Trump's strongest defenders, says the president is not worried about the issue.
He had nothing to do with it. President Trump has clean hands. He's not worried about it. I talk to him all the time. He has nothing to do with this. He's frustrated that they're turning it into a political issue, and it's not surprising because the Democrats have nothing else to talk about. What have they accomplished in 10 months? Epstein is their entire game plan.
The vote could come as early as tomorrow. The U.S. is now making its biggest show of force in the Caribbean in a generation. And late last night, the pressure on Venezuela's regime escalated again. The Navy says the USS Gerald R, the most advanced aircraft carrier in the fleet, crossed into the Caribbean Sea on Sunday. The Trump administration calls it a counter-drug mission, but experts say it's a direct warning to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. And just hours later, the U.S. turned up the heat even more. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the U.S. will designate Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization. He says the cartel, allegedly led by Maduro and top figures in his regime, is responsible for terrorist violence across the hemisphere and massive drug trafficking in the United States. The designation takes effect November 24th. Last night, President Trump added a new twist, saying the U.S. may be having talks with Maduro, claiming the Venezuelan leader appears to want to engage.
We may be having some discussions with Maduro, and we'll see how that turns out. They would like to talk.
The U.S. has already carried out strikes on at least 22 vessels in the region over the last 2 months. The latest strike happened this weekend, a drone hitting a boat in the eastern Pacific, killing 3 men on board. So far, the administration has not released any evidence that those killed were narco-terrorists, and some key allies, including the UK and Colombia, have stopped sharing intelligence over legal concerns about the U.S. operations. The USS Gerald R, along with fighter jets and guided missile destroyers, are now part of what Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is calling Operation Southern Spear. Commanders say it's designed to protect the U.S. from narco-terrorism. Southern Command says the Ford Strike Group, 4,000 sailors, dozens of fighter jets, and 3 warships, is now joining a growing U.S. naval force already positioned off Venezuela. After weeks of crippled air travel and the worst disruptions the country has ever seen, the FAA says the sky is finally open. The FAA announced late Sunday it's lifting all restrictions on commercial flights. The emergency limits put in place at 40 major airports during the record-long 43-day government shutdown. Airlines went back to full schedules starting this morning at 6 a.m. Eastern. The FAA and Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said air traffic controller staffing has steadily improved, enough that their safety team now recommends ending the order. The cuts led to thousands of cancellations, including 2,900 in a single day. Conditions only eased as more controllers returned to work and Congress moved to end the shutdown. Air traffic controllers were among the federal workers who worked without pay throughout the impasse. Airlines say they expect operations to steady quickly, just in time for Thanksgiving travel. The Reverend Jesse Jackson, one of America's most influential civil rights leaders, remains hospitalized this morning in Chicago and is now on a form of life support to stabilize his blood pressure. A family source tells CNN the 84-year-old founder of the Rainbow Push Coalition has been on medication to regulate his blood pressure after a significant drop over the weekend, and that his medical team is trying to wean him off. CBS News reports Jackson has shown brief moments of awareness, but his condition is said to be weakening. Family and friends are now flying in from across the country to be by his side. Jackson has been under observation for progressive supranuclear palsy, a rare degenerative neurological disorder similar to Parkinson's disease. The Trump administration's latest immigration crackdown has jumped from Chicago to Charlotte, and it's already setting off a firestorm. A weekend sweep led to more than 80 arrests and loud pushback from local leaders who say they don't want federal agents surging in their city. Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino, who helped lead the Midway Blitz in Chicago, posted video of suspected undocumented immigrants now in custody in Charlotte. He's calling the operation Charlotte's Web, writing that the breeze hit Charlotte like a storm and that agents go where the mission calls. But community groups say what's happening on the ground is far more intense. The executive director of Charlotte East told the AP the federal presence has been, quote, overwhelming and difficult to quantify, with reports of agents at churches, apartment complexes, and local shops. Democratic Congresswoman Alma Adams says she is extremely concerned about Border Patrol and ICE operations in her district, writing on X that she will not stand by and watch her constituents be intimidated and harassed. Finally today, move over morning commute. Nuremberg just had a sheep show. Take a look. Hundreds of bleeding, fluffy traffic jams over downtown Nuremberg. That's in Germany on Sunday. This is pretty fascinating, actually. About 600 sheep clippity-clopping their way through the city on their annual move to winter quarters, kind of like, well, bears going into hibernation, I suppose. People stopped, posed, took selfies. The sheep didn't seem to mind the paparazzi. They were like in formation there, right? They spend their summers mowing the city's meadows the old-fashioned way, one bite at a time. Eco-friendly and very good for biodiversity. Plus, they save the city a ton of money on lawn care. Who knew? A busy day on the national radar. Here's what we're tracking. This morning, the U.S. Supreme Court is set to drop new orders in several major appeals. Out west, Lil Nas X heads back to court after pleading not guilty to 4 felony charges tied to an alleged confrontation with police back in August. Later today, demonstrators hit the White House gates for another round of protests over U.S. policy. And tonight, the stars step out in New York for the Wicked for Good premiere, the final big launch before the film hits theaters nationwide. News without the junk calories, all the facts, zero fluff. Sign up for the Unbiased Updates newsletter, san.com/newsletters. Those are the Unbiased Updates for this Monday. We'll see you back here tomorrow. For all of us here at Straight Arrow News, I'm Craig DeGrelli. Have a great day.